Hello everyone, and this video is brought to you by AzamSharp School. AzamSharp School hosts one of the largest catalogs for iOS development videos. You can check it out on azamsharp.school. If you click on courses, you will see a huge list of courses and even AzamSharp Pro exclusive content. Now, these are individual videos that you can check out apart from the courses, and there are a lot of individual videos. All of these videos are targeted for intermediate and advanced developers. Apart from that, you have courses on foundation model, machine learning, skip tools, pragmatic testing, and even one of my favorite and the most popular course, SwiftUI architecture. If you want to learn about Supabase, I have a course on that. If you want to stay in the iOS world and want to learn backend development, I have a course on that. And apart from courses, I also offer workshops. Now, these are 3-hour live workshops and they are very, very popular. I just finished one of them on the Vapor development, and the next one is coming up on October 24th, 2025 at 11 a.m. Central. This is going to be on Swift Data. So if you want to learn about Swift Data architecture, the correct way of building Swift Data application, relationships, testing, and even CloudKit integration, then check out this workshop. So make sure that you enroll in that. And if you are a part of annual member, then you will simply get this workshop and all the workshop completely free. One of the things that I have also started with AzamSharp School is one-on-one coaching. One-on-one coaching simply means that you get 1 hour with me and you can discuss anything. I've already completed a couple of one-on-one coaching sessions, and we talked about SwiftUI architecture and also career development, content development, and many much more. So check out one-on-one coaching. If you want my coaching services are available. So definitely check out the calendar and fill out the intake form, which is right here. So this is it. This is AzamSharp School, your one-stop source for everything related to iOS development. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on AzamSharp School. Hello everyone. In this lecture, you're going to be learning about how you can perform login, meaning authentication, using the Platzi Fake Store API, and you're integrated with your SwiftUI application. So if you go to fakeapi.platzi.com and click on the auth JWT, which stands for JSON Web Tokens, you'll be taken to this particular page, which I'm on right now. Now, if you go to the login part, because we're trying to log in, we already did the registration part earlier on, but we're trying to do login now. And there are a couple of different things we need to take care of before we implement the login. The request. So that's the URL where we have to post our credentials, which comprises of email and password. As you can see right there, email and password. The response is the most interesting one, because the response that the server actually gives you is JSON, that's fine, but it doesn't say authenticated true or false. It says access token, and then there's an access token right there, and something called a refresh token, and then there's a refresh token. Both of them are, by the way, different. They look kind of alike, but they are different. And here's a note which is saying that the access token is valid for 20 days and the refresh token is valid for 10 hours. But what exactly is access token? And what exactly is refresh token? And what will be the purpose of these two things? Now, in order to understand this, let me actually take you and draw it out. So this is my iPad, and we are looking at JWT. So let me actually write something out over here, JWT. All right. Okay. So what happens is that this is your iPhone, right? it's going to make a request to the server. This is a server. And server, what it is returning is accessToken, and refreshToken. That's what's going on, right? That's what we have learned already, that the Platzi login API is returning in JSON format. Now, accessToken, if I write over here, accessToken, this is to access protected resources. Protected resources. So what does that even mean, protected resources? This means that once you have the accessToken, and maybe in the future you're like, well, I need to go and get my profile. So I go to a route called profile. Now, profile is protected. Protected means that you can only access the profile if you are logged in, right? But how do we know? How do we know that you're logged in? Well, that's where the accessToken is going to come into play. Whenever you go to these protected route, that can be profile, that can be show me my cart, or, show me my products, anything related to that required authentication, you need to send in the accessToken. So in the headers of the request of the protected route, you will send the accessToken. The server is going to grab the accessToken. It's going to check if the accessToken is valid, is expired or not expired, because remember, it's like 10 days, and then after that it will expire. It's going to check all of those things. If all of those things are valid, then your accessToken is valid, which means that you can access all of these different resources. All right. Now the question comes, well, hold on a second. What is the reason for the refreshToken? I mean, looks like accessToken is doing everything. So what is the refreshToken doing? Well, the job of the refreshToken is to give you a new accessToken, right? To provide you new accessToken. Why? So that you don't have to sign in. Let's say if your accessToken is expiring, like every time you get the accessToken, it expires in 2 days. So this means you will need to have to log in after every 2 days. That can kind of becomes annoying, right? So what refreshToken allows you to do, refreshToken allows you to refresh your accessToken so you don't have to sign in again and again and again and again, or log in again. So that's the job of the refreshToken. Now, going back over here, where we are saying like, well, we are getting the accessToken and refreshToken, but the question is, we have to store it on the client side. We have to store it on our app, the SwiftUI app. So now the question becomes, where to store access and refresh tokens, right? Where do we store these? Now, these are just string, right? So we don't really need a full-fledged database to store these things. Anything that is key value pair, which can store key value, we can use that. Now, one of the things that come to mind is user defaults. Should we store it in user defaults? Or the other one is Keychain. Now, user defaults, you shouldn't use that because user default, anyone can access user defaults, right? And when you store over there, even though the accessToken may look kind of weird, like if I go over here and check out the accessToken, you can see that this accessToken is like, oh, it's all encrypted. Well, it's not encrypted, it's encoded. There's a difference, right? So if I take this accessToken and go and decode it, I can look like what is the information in this accessToken. Actually, there are some websites where you can actually do that. So let me see if I can go there and see decode accessToken. I don't remember where it is, but We'll probably have to search for it. So jwt.io. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and paste the access token that I have over here. Okay, it's coming out with the invalid signature. But if you paste it, and maybe I'm doing something wrong, but if you paste your access token over here, did I even copy it correctly? I think I probably copied it correctly. But if you paste your access token over here, the jwt.io, it's going to decode the token and it will tell you what's inside the token. So in other words, whenever this token is generated, access token or refresh token, it does not contain any sensitive information. Now, luckily in this case, the Platzi Store API is generating these tokens, so they have to be careful as not to put my password, not to put my email into the token, not to put my social security number into the token. So they're responsible for that part, all right? But if you're responsible for implementing the server, then that responsibility lies on you to make sure that the access token and refresh token does not contain any sensitive data. But anyways, going back to this diagram, user defaults, we cannot save it over there because somebody can just grab it over there. Keychain is one of the places where you can store sensitive data. All right. So we will be storing our access token and refresh token in Keychain. And then whenever we try to perform any requests that requires access token and refresh token, well, mostly access token, then we're going to just send it in the headers. All right. So that's the whole thing about access token and refresh token. Now let's go ahead and implement our login route. Now keep in mind that we are still going to be using separate function for registration as well as for the registration as well as for the login, which is over here. You can see that we have a registration function, and we can create a separate function for login also over here. Okay. And in the future, we will see that, the registration and login, they're kind of like doing, we're writing all this code over here. So maybe it's a good idea to not use this, meaning like create more of a generic HTTP context, generic function that can handle all of those different things. But that will be in the future. Right now, what we want to do is we want to implement our register function in our HTTP client, which can take in the email and password, and it will get the tokens. It will get the access token and the refresh token. And then we can save those tokens in our keychain. That's all we want to do right now. That's all we want to do. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So let me start by implementing the HTTP client. And once again, we are going to be changing the implementation so that we have a single generic function in HTTP client. But right now, we're just making things separate so that we have a clear picture of what we're doing. And then later on, we can update that. All right. So I'm going to create a separate function, login. We can pass in the email. We can pass in the password. All right. And this is going to be an async function. And this is also going to be returning the login response DTO, data transfer object. Now, what does the login response will contain? Well, whatever the response we're getting from the server. So as we mentioned before, the server is going to be returning you the access token and the refresh token. So let's go back and check out our DTO. You can see that we don't really have the login response, but don't worry, I can just quickly add that. And you can also create login requests if you want to. All right, so let me go ahead and create that also. Although for login requests, you can also use a dictionary, but we can just create login request also. Let's go over here. Okay, so now we can create our login request, the DTO that we just created, and we can pass in the email, we can pass in the password. So that is our login request DTO that we created. All right. Next up, I'm going to create the request URL request with the URL. Now, what is the URL over here, right? Actually, we don't really need the cache policy and all that stuff, but we just need the URL. So let's go to the constants and check over here. Static let login, and we'll just add the URL. So we got to make sure. Is that the registration? Okay, so that's the registration URL, but let's get the URL for the login, which is this one. There we go. You can use enum, whatever you want. I think that's also perfectly fine if you're using static let. That is also fine. All right, so constants dot URLs dot login. All right, great. Next up, request dot HTTP method. So that's going to say the same. We're going to do the post method, and then we will use the body. So request dot body, HTTP body. JSON encoder, we are going to encode the login request, and we're also going to add the application JSON content type. All right, so that's important. Now, next, we're going to create, or we're going to perform the request using URL session.share.data. We are going to get some sort of a response, and that will be our login response. JSON decoder dot decode login response dot self and data. And then we can go ahead and return the login response. Keep in mind that the login response will have the access token and the refresh token. If everything goes good, then it will have both of these things, right? Okay. So this is the HTTP client, but we need to invoke this from our controller. So we have the authentication controller, and right now the authentication controller only contains the register function, but we can update that and we can say email and password. Now, what is this authentication controller going to return? That's an interesting part, because right now I can just return true, meaning the person is logged in or not logged in, and that would be fine also. All right, but this is completely up to you what you want to actually return. So over here, we are going to use HTTP client.login, passing in the email, passing in the password. We are going to get the login response, and make sure this is try and await. Now, hopefully this login response contains the access token and the refresh token. So the next step, what we want to do is to save the access and refresh token in Keychain. Now, there are so many different ways of using Keychain. If you want to persist or save something in a Keychain, you have many different options. What I actually did is I just went to ChatGPT and I just told ChatGPT to create some sort of a Keychain wrapper. So I'm just going to use that. All right. I'm not really going to go into the code to explain all of that stuff. It's a bit of a code, but just remember the purpose of the Keychain wrapper is, well, it's just going to be there so that you can put something in the keychain. So I'm going to say keychain wrapper dot swift. And I can just go ahead and add all of this stuff. All right, so this is we got from the ChatGPT. You can see that it has a set function that allows you to put something in the keychain, a get function, which allows you to get something from the keychain, and a delete function to delete the key and the value for that particular keychain. So now we have the keychain wrapper. We can go back to our authentication controller and basically use that. So let's see how can we use it. Keychain dot set the value, right? So value will be response dot, and we can say access token. Well, login response, sorry. So we'll say login response dot access token for the key, which is access token. So that's the access token being saved. Keychain dot set login response dot refresh token. That's the value that we're storing, which is refresh token. And there we go. We just save these values in Keychain with only 2 lines of code. Obviously, we're using the Keychain wrapper, and there are some other Keychain wrappers that are available that you can add as a package, like Swift package. If you want to, those are third-party, the third-party packages you can use. That's perfectly fine too if you want to use that. All right. Okay, so we don't really have the screen over here for. You can see we don't really have the screen for the login. So let's go ahead and add a screen for the login. And we'll call it login screen. Okay. So login screen will be the screen that will be responsible for, well, performing the login, right? So it will have text boxes for email, entering the email, entering the password. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hard code email and password. Obviously, these things will be blank. I'm just hard coding so that I don't have to type in this stuff. All right. And we can add is form valid. We can validate these things that the email and password is correct that you're typing in. It does contain something. We can also access our authentication controller, which is in the environment value. We can get that. And next I can implement the form itself. All right. Again, this is completely up to you how your form is going to look like. I'm just going to go ahead and add this, and you can see that we have login and password, right? The other section that we will have will be, let's go ahead and add another section. Again, the UI is completely up to you. We have to implement the login. There we go. So now we need to implement the login function. Now, login function over here is simply a helper function. Some people see this and they're like, oh no, you're actually performing the login inside the view. All right. And well, first of all, login screen is a view model. That's the first thing to remember. And the second thing is that we're not really doing anything inside the login, function itself, because we will have to take help from the authentication controller, and then we have to perform all of these things. And if you do want to test out any presentation logic, then you should be writing UI test, end-to-end test, integration test, all of those different things. All right. All right. So authentication controller.login, this is going to return us some sort of, result. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create app storage. App storage means user defaults. And I'm going to put this is authenticated so that I know that the person is authenticated inside the user defaults. Now, keep in mind, if you're putting a flag is authenticated inside user default, that's perfectly fine. I mean, I'm not putting access tokens over there, right? It's just a flag. It's just saying that the person is authenticated or not. All right. And that's pretty much it. That's all it is doing. This will be an async function. And I think all of this should be in a try catch. And we will have to use try await over here. Let's actually make sure that we have a little bit of size over here. And then we can call this function in the task right there. Okay. And when you catch it, we can simply go ahead and, for now, we can simply print it out over here. All right. And that's it. I mean, that will be our login screen, right? What I want to do is I want to just print out the value of is authenticated. Oops. There we go. Oh, wow. Can't really type over here. There we go. Is authenticated. I want to just type out is authenticated. And it would be nice if we just print it out, just for your sake, login response dot access token, and so that we know that we are getting something, and refresh token. And obviously make sure that you delete these things before going live, before, pushing everything to production. Okay, let's go to the app. You can see that it's displaying the content view right now. The content view is basically nothing, right? Now what I want to do is I want to kind of show both the views together for now. So I'm going to show the registration screen, and I'm also going to show the login screen. Obviously, in your app, you shouldn't be doing that, right? Unless that's your design. And the reason I'm doing this way is that probably the person that I registered, it's already that person expired, meaning their registration is no longer there. So this will give me some idea of, well, I can quickly register the user and then I can quickly add or log in the user. But this is obviously not the way that you're displaying the screens unless you have a specific requirements. All right. This is all going to change. This is all going to change. All right. All I want to do is to see the registration screen and login screen together. So I can register the user first and then log in the registered user. All right. That's the only reason I'm doing it this way. And all of this is going to change. We're going to add like some tab views. We're going to do things differently because we want to make sure that once the person logs in, it takes you to the home screen. All right, there we go. Looking nice, right? Okay, so John Doe, that's fine. I'm going to register. There we go. So that was the reason that I had registration and login on the same screen. So now I can just click the login button. Okay, so there we go. There's something going on. See? So quickly I was able to find out the data couldn't be read because it is missing. Interesting. So something is missing. So we need to find out what just happened. All right. So email, password. I think email and password, hopefully these things are getting sent. But this is the one we're calling email, we're calling password. So something is looking weird, right? It's not getting the answer. So I'm going to put a breakpoint over here. I mean, we don't know what's going on, what the error is, or why is it behaving this way. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and run it again. Now the person is already registered, so I'm going to register the user again. All right, let's see what's going on. So email is johndoe@gmail.com. Password is password123. I think that should be okay. We get the post. We try to get the body. We get that also. Let's see if we actually goes and yeah, something is going on. And then it says the data couldn't be read because it is missing. All right. So now the question is, are we sending the same thing that it's requiring us to send? Email and password. So this is all of this thing and then email and password. Are we actually sending it email and password? Let's go ahead and check it out. Yeah, it is email, it is password. So something is missing. We need to find out what it is. All right, so I did a little bit more digging around into this. If you look over here in my HTTP client, what I did is whatever the data is being returned, I just printed it out so that I know what is the response coming in. And this was the response that was coming back, unauthorized. And I'm like, wait, unauthorized? How can I be unauthorized? Unauthorized basically can also mean that the credentials that I'm passing are incorrect. And then I checked and they were incorrect because in the registration screen, I was using password 1234, but in the login screen, and I just updated it, I was using 123. So now I updated it to 1234. All right. So it was definitely my mistake. Let me go ahead and run it again. So the registered person is already there. So I think I just have to log in. Oh, there we go. See that? And now it's working correctly. You can see over here, it is returning you. I'm not sure why it's returning you false. We need to check that out. But we're getting the access token and we're getting the refresh token. And is authenticated. For some reason, it's printing out false. That doesn't sound right. Oh, we're returning false. That's why. There we go. All right. And that's it. That's our login part of it. There we go. We get the access token and we get the refresh token. Refresh token is right there. Access token is right there. So we get these two tokens. We put these tokens in the keychain so that the next time we have to make a request to get our profile, to get our products, or go to any of the protected routes, we need to send in the access token. If the access token is expired, then we have to use our refresh token, like a backup token, to try to refresh the access token. If refresh token is also expired, well, then we have to go to the login screen and actually log in. All right, start over again. But now you have learned how to do authentication. Once again, the HTTP client is going to be changing, and we're probably going to do that in the next lecture, where we are going to be creating more of a generic HTTP client. Because if we don't create a generic HTTP client, then we will end up with register function, login function, get profile function, get cart function, get products, get categories. We will have like a billion functions over there, right? So we can have just one function to kind of control everything. That can be a little bit of a long function, like the implementation can be long, but it will serve the purpose of all the function we're about to write. All right. So hopefully you have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for more, because a lot of things I'll be covering with the Platzi Store API. Thank you.